Welcome all you guitar nerds out there. Today on the bench we have a quite unique and rare amp, an orange OR80 from the early 70s. The company kicked off in 1968 and became a competitioner of Vox and Marshall in the United Kingdom. The color and the design of the faceplate made these amplifiers so different to the boring black Tolex style of the other competitioners. The graphics, symbols, and the coat of arms made me wonder what kind of dope these guys smoked back in these times. But believe it or not, every single part of this coat of arms has a meaning. Cheerio. Okay, let's get to work. Here's a look at the chassis with the back panel removed. The tubes are not hanging downwards like in most every combo amp. No, they are mounted horizontal. We have a giant power transformer and a giant output transformer into nice 12-inch Celestion speakers made in Ipswich, England. Let's plug this fellow in and taste some of the juicy orange sound. Well, you can hear what I hear. A nasty distortion sound, scratchy. Time for an inspection, and then we will bring back the sweetness of a juicy orange. Well, we can see all the heaters glow. This is good so far. The tubes don't make any crackling noise, and none of the tubes are microphonic. That means we have to bring it on the bench and take a closer look inside. The power tubes are JJ's, not my favorite brand, EL34s. When you look at the label, you see a slight discoloration. They have a shade of gray, and that's an indicator for too much heat. So we have to check the bias later on, and maybe it's necessary to cool the power tubes a little bit down. Let's flip the chassis over and remove this chunk of plywood that is also responsible to hold the chassis inside the cabinet. I don't want to bore you looking at me turning screws, so I press the fast forward button. Boy, these screws are so long. But here we go. It's the last one. And then we can look at the guts of the orange OR80. The circuit is nice, tidy and clean. Pretty much straightforward, and it seems to be untouched. Hooray! No tinkerer had his sticky fingers in here before. That's nice. Here on the far right you can see the bridge rectifier and filter caps, followed by the bias circuit. Overall, high quality components like these belt and tube sockets. Yeah, I like the layout of this amp so far. This first inspection cleared up one thing. The amp needs definitely new filter caps. After 50 years they start to turn their inside out, as you can see here. And I was wrong when I said that nobody was in here before. I have to correct myself. Look at the capacitors in the bias circuit. A sloppy solder job, and these caps wiggle around on the board. I have to clear that up later. No big deal. To get access to the underside of the PCB board, I had to remove 6 bolts, and ta-da! I can turn it upside down. An easy and good solution. Well done, Orange. The next step is replacing all the electrolytic capacitors. 11 pieces that I have to remove and swap in new ones. By the way, do you remember the last video that I did about the little Preamp? The little brother of the amp Jimmy Page was using to record the first 2 Led Zeppelin albums. Well, actually, he used Orange amps for his live performances. Maybe I should call him again to do the sound demo at the end of this video too. Another thing that I found out about our example on the bench is the date when it was made. When you find on the faceplate the graphic pictures and the letters, you can tell that it's made from 1974 until 1976. And here we are. All the bypass caps are changed. The filter caps are new. Here are the 2 caps in the bias circuit. Yeah, everything is nice and clean again. Last step, we have to change the filter caps outside the chassis. You can see the original one. It is called mini cap, but when you look at the new one, this is mini. It has the same value, but the size is much smaller, as you can see, but it fits perfectly in the clamp. To make the service complete, I have to clean up the pots. Some of them were quite scratchy, so I spray some deoxit and wiggle them around a little bit to clean them. So I'm pretty sure they will work perfect after that. The amp is a 1-channel amp, actually, without a master volume. The sound character is overall very clean, and if you want this one to overdrive, you either have to crank this piece up and tear your house down, or use maybe an attenuator. Let's pay our attention to the preamp tubes. Might be interesting for you. We see that we have a Mazda valve, probably the original ones. Mazda tubes are not associated to a Japanese car company. No, this name was related to an ancient Persian god of light, because Mazda started to produce light bulbs in the early 20th century, and later on valves or tubes available in London, as you can see here. But don't call the telephone number. I assume there's nobody hanging around in this sales office anymore. But all the Mazda preamp tubes tested fine after 50 years of service. So good quality, right? Remember that I mentioned before that the output tubes showed evidence of heat. Let's check them on the tester, and yeah, they're test fine. Nothing wrong with them. But in this case, it's a good idea to check the bias as well to see why these tubes suffered from heat. Yeah, okay, let's plug in my homemade bias probes. At least I try to plug them in. All right. And the next one. It's not easy to find the key sometimes. Okay, here we go. Again, where's the key? I connected a dummy load to the speaker out, and let's flip the switch. The tube's starting to draw current. And yes, they're running definitely too hot. With EL34 tubes and a plate voltage of 480 volts, we should read around 30 milliamps instead of 50. So let's flip the chassis over and try to get these tubes in a cooler range. Again, the tubes start to draw current. And you can see that they are not perfectly matched. They show a different current draw, so we have to find a compromise. Let's see where we can get. Yeah, I think 33 and 29 milliamps are good enough. But the final question is this orange sweet and juicy again? Well, listen to that.